In the year 2005, GBME, that's Gibson Baldwin Music Education, announced that they were going to release some instruments, guitars, aimed at the student or beginner. I think that Gibson very quickly regretted this, but certainly I seem to think 2006 and 2007 they produced the... Now we did have one on here a couple of years ago. We had the Gibson Epoch. Now I'm not really quite sure what that was supposed to emulate. It was very flat. It wasn't really... It's more like a Gordon Smith than a Gibson, if I recall it correctly. But they did this one, the Signature series. They did this in SG flavour as well. As you can see, this is a real... I love the finish on that, you know. It's a really nice, bright sort of cherry burst, is it not? Lovely stuff. And they did the Maestro, which is a bit like a Les Paul Junior. I don't know if they did that in an SG as well. And for 100 quid, or less than 100 quid, from Amazon, that kind of outlet, you got yourself a guitar and an amp and a cable and a strap and a plectrum, and I think you even got you got a DVD to play along to, and free online lessons. I mean, to be fair, for 100 quid, it was a hell of a nice package. And of course, it says Gibson on it. Well, it doesn't say Gibson on the headstock. It just says Signature, but it does have an open book headstock of sorts. But it says Gibson on the back, on the neck plate, which means, oh, it's a Gibson. So, we did have a look at how bad they can be. I can't remember, and I can't be bothered looking at the Epoch that we did. But this one does look to have some, if it's not a maple cap, it looks to have some kind of cap. And my prediction at the time was, here's the thing, my prediction at the time was that these things would only increase in value because they say Gibson on them. And they may eventually achieve some kind of cult status, maybe. Not perhaps in the same way as the Sonex did, because the Sonex was made in the US of A, and these of course were made in China, as far as I understand it. But all the same, like I say, they are made in China, and they do say Gibson on the back, and people do hot rod them. People do put, you know, either Seymours in, or, you know, and just or 4, 5, 6 shallow stop tail with the individual saddles on, and decent tuners and that kind of thing. So let's look at this one, see how bad it is. I mean, see what it's like. That's it. Okay, so we've got to recall first, this is 20 years old, and there's going to be a few nicks and knots on it, but it looks reasonable. That fretboard looks as dry as a biscuit. The frets want a bit of clean up. And these are starting now to change hands for a couple of 100 quid. And I have said this before, that with these, there will be nothing wrong with putting the word Gibson on that headstock. I think we might do that. So around the back, what we got, look at this, it's even been passed by somebody. I'll grab that off at some point. Yeah, you see, there is absolutely no getting around the fact that it says Gibson on it. They must be kicking themselves. Now, those tuners look to me like the same ones that we got on that. Do you remember that Gibson M2? Came in some nice pastel colours of blue and pink and coral and things. A scarf joint going on the neck there, which, you know, it's just good. But of course, you know, they've got to save money somewhere. So The string height looks absolutely woeful, so let's have a look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but the string height at the 12th fret is good lord above. That's about 3 inches. Now let's have that down. Yeah, neck straightness, that's not horrific. Definitely I've seen worse. As I recall, the action was bad on that last one, on that epoch, largely because the frets had the wibbly wobblies. I'll give that a little tighten up. Alright, so we've just plugged it in and happily that works. That works. All of the controls work as they should. The tones, the volumes work. That's great. So let's have a look at something else. Right, okay. So that looks about right, and oh well, it moves. Obviously, had the neck straightness been okay, I wouldn't have even bothered looking at it, but it was a bit gappy. It's probably about a quarter. Let's look at that. That's it. Right, next. So next up is the fret rocker. Amazing. Oh. This is something that they always get a bad press about. And that epoch that we had a couple of years ago was pretty bad. Oh, this is alright. So far. No. No. Oh, one there. But if it's just one, which one's that? 7, that's the 8th. 8th fret is proud. Then that might be why the action is high. Because it's been set high to miss that. Third fret, the tiniest bit. Second fret. Third fret. Do you know what? Oof, sorry about that. Let's get the fret file out. I'm only, you won't even be able to see this, but well, you'll hear it. I'm only going over quickly just the ones that need addressing. So it's like now, of course, the difficulty always is that if you've done the bottom ones, you might have to do the top ones as well. But I've not given them that much, and then that's fine. I'll polish them up. Okay, so the next thing is to take a big ugly stick and see if we can wind these down and lower that action, because it's still, I thought that straighten the neck might have lowered the action, but it didn't particularly. So let's see if there's any movement in these. Yeah, that's got something in there. That's it. down too high. So if you're ever doing this and it's under tension, always use something that isn't going to slip out of these slots, otherwise you will make it look ugly. The glorious sound of eBay. So, should be getting somewhere near now. Still feels a bit high. And then, of course, we need to check for any buzzing or choking. So, let's have a look. We're now sitting at, I don't know if you can see that, but we are now at 125, which is where I want to be. And I want to be about 2 back here. That wants to come up a tad. Right, okay, so the gap using the straight edge is as big as I want to see it. The action is where I want to see it. However, no wonder Gibson regretted this. Okay, so while you weren't looking, what I did was I took the neck off and I've put the skinniest, slimmest of shims at the back to bring that angle down at this end. And I've done all of the frets now, so now we are nice and clean right the way up to the top. So it's time to give those frets a good old polish and yeah, get some strings on. So string action, even neck straightness, everything is okay. Right, let's get him polished up and new strings on, see what it's like. So really the only other thing that I was particularly interested in was what pickups do we have in there, and we have got something so unbelievably generic, but we'll measure them, see if they're popping out. So right, time to get that neck, well, get the frets polished up and condition the neck, and let's see what we're going to do about that headstock. Well, I'm quite happy with that, and we've bobbed that on it because it is one, I suppose. So, that's it, it's late now. So, we'll get that reviewed when we do the Les Paul run, which will be, oh, it needs a couple of strap buttons as well, which will be in a few weeks. We've got a couple of strats left to do, and then it's the SGs, and then it'll be the Les Pauls. So with that, I shall bid you a fond farewell for this cheekiest of midweekers. Adios amigos, ta-ra.